What is up, team? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to take you guys through some common mistakes when it comes to cable kickbacks, show you guys how to fix those common mistakes, and then take you through some of our fave kickback variations that we do here at the Glute Academy. And then I'm going to answer some of your glute related questions. So let's get into it. All right, let's get into it. So I've got my cable cuff on, cable attachment, whatever you call it, cable machine. Now, first of all, when it comes to kickbacks, guys, you don't really need a whole lot of weight until you're really comfortable and confident with your technique. I definitely recommend just to, choose a weight that's suitable to you, that you can, adhere to a great technique. It's not too challenging to the point where you're breaking your form if you're not confident with the movement. All right, so let's get into some common mistakes. I'll show you guys how to fix them. Then I'll take you through some of my favorite ways to do cable kickbacks. So the first common mistake that I see when we're doing our kickbacks is having excessive pelvic shift, and this is often due to overuse of momentum. Okay, so I'll show you front on, then I'll show you guys on the actual cable machine. So what I mean by excessive pelvic shift is when you're kicking back, your pelvis is shifting. Sorry, I'm falling over, I don't have good balance. As you're kicking back, your pelvis is shifting with the movement. Okay, obviously when we're doing our kickbacks, we're trying to isolate our upper glutes, okay, as much as possible. So what happens is when we're actually shifting our pelvis, you're going to take out a lot of that engagement in your glutes, okay? There will be a little bit of a pelvic shift, but we want to try and keep our hips as square as possible, okay? Now, another common mistake often will come as the result of doing that, which is working past a range of motion that is suitable to you as an individual. Obviously, we're all different, we have different ranges of motion, okay? But if you're having excessive pelvic shift and utilizing momentum, you're often going to be working through an unrealistic range of motion, okay? And again, that's gonna be taking out a lot of that engagement in your glutes. Greater range of motion does not necessarily mean greater engagement if you are breaking your technique. Now, the last common mistake that I see when doing cable kickbacks is having an upright torso and hyperextending your back. Okay, as you can see here, my torso is upright, which means that my spine is not neutral. Okay, I'm sticking my butt out. So you see a lot of the girls in the gym doing these ones because they want to stick their butts out, That's cool if you want to stick your butt out, I'm all for that. But when we're doing our kickbacks, it's very important to not do that so you can build those glutes by adhering to good technique. Okay, so what you want to think about doing instead of having your butt sticking out is actually creating a neutral spine by tucking your pelvis under and being in a slightly leant forward position. So then you can be in a really great position to utilize your glutes as opposed to being in an upright position, and that's going to have you hyperextend your lower back. Alrighty, so let's get into that on the actual cable machine. Now I've just done it all body weight. Okay, so common mistakes again are going to be upright torso, okay, use of momentum, excessive pelvic shift. Often will look something like this, or even if you're not shifting your pelvis, you can still be in that upright position. All right, so again, how we want to be doing cable kickbacks. And now these are going to be foundation cues for all kickback variations that I'm going to take you through after. Okay, so what we want to be doing is, again, choosing a suitable weight that you're able to adhere to good technique. You want to take a slight step away from the cable machine. I like to hold on to it, okay? Obviously that way it's going to help you maintain strict form. We want to begin by being in a slightly leant forward position. Okay, we want to put all of our weight into this opposite leg, okay, so we can remain nice and stable. We want to try and keep our hips as square as possible without excessively shifting our pelvis. And we want to be working through a suitable range of motion so that we're not breaking our technique and hyperextending our back. All right, so this is how we want to be doing it. And I like to also kick back on a slight angle. So as you can see there, I'm kicking back slightly towards the wall. Okay, again, there's no big deal if you don't like that. Everyone's different. But as you can see here, I'm remaining quite strict with my technique. I'm not over excessively shifting my pelvis. My range of motion isn't massive, okay, but I'm working through a range of motion that I can feel my glutes, okay, and I'm able to maintain really great technique. Now I'm going to take you guys through our 3 favorite ways of doing cable kickbacks that we do here at the Glute Academy HQ, and also my online academy girls do these as well. I'm like puffed out from doing these videos. I feel like I need to start doing some more cardio. Okay, so my personal favorite at the moment is doing constant tension kickbacks. Simply means what it's called, you're remaining constant tension. So you're not coming down to reset. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. Again, the technique cues that I just took you through are gonna be the same for all of these variations I'm going to take you guys through, okay? So beginning in slightly leant forward position, okay? Trying to keep my pelvis nice and square. Now, constant tension simply means that you're remaining, obviously, you're creating constant tension. Okay, so I've got a nice straight leg, okay? Now, as you can see here, I'm not coming all the way forward and working through a full range of motion. I'm just working through a shortened range of motion, but I'm remaining constant tension, as you can see there. So at the moment, that's one of my favorite variations. Now as well, if you're someone who feels your lower back when you're doing kickbacks, it probably is because of that excessive pelvic shift that we've already went through. But if you do find that you do fix that and you're still feeling a little bit of your lower back, I actually often find that the constant tension kickbacks for the clients that did feel a little bit of their lower back when doing kickbacks, felt that they were fine when they did the constant tension, because it's requiring less movement from your pelvis, really, if that makes sense, because you're not coming all the way forward. You're just working through a shortened range of motion. So the next variation is just a traditional kickback when we're working through a full range of motion. Now you can do this with a bit of a knee bend, or you can also do it straight leg. Okay, so working through my leg comes all the way towards the cable machine and I'm kicking all the way back, as you can see here. And again, you can do that with a slight bend in the knee, if you like. Again, there's no wrong or right. I always just recommend try both variations out and then stick to what feels best to you. And what I was saying before is I like to kick back on a slight angle. So what I mean by that is instead of kicking straight back, you can kick back on a slight angle. I often find you'll feel more glutes. Now, my second favorite way of doing kickbacks is by elevating the non-working leg. So I'm actually gonna switch these over, give this side a bit of a go so you guys can see what I mean. So by standing on the box or elevating your opposite leg, now you can use boxes. I've obviously got my BC strength boxes. You can use an aerobic box at a gym or a bumper plate, that's also fine. Okay, now this is going to allow you to work through a full range of motion without your leg like going on the floor. So it allows for a nice smooth kickback, you would say. I don't know what to call it. Alrighty, so what you're going to do is hook yourself in like so. Okay, get into your position. Make sure that that's your whole foot's planted. Yep. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is work through a full range of motion. And as you can see there, my foot is not going on the floor. All right, I love this variation as well. Also with the cable cuff attachment, you can either have it down like right on your ankle, or you can also have it up just a little bit. Again, try both out and see what feels best for you. There's no wrong or right with that. I went through a phase where I liked it like here. I liked it like here. I liked it in this position. So I hope those tips were helpful for you guys. Again, kickbacks, yes, it's not like a big compound movement where you're potentially going to really hurt yourself like doing a deadlift or a squat. Okay, but it is an accessory movement, but we should still be training with intent, applying great technique so we can utilize this exercise to the best of our ability. I love cable kickbacks. I think it's a fantastic glute isolation movement, so you want to be doing them properly. So yeah, hope that was helpful. Now let's get into some glute Q&A. All right, team, let's get into some Q&A. Also, if you have any questions that you want me to answer on another video, you guys can click the link below to email me or send me through a DM on Instagram at the Glute Academy HQ. Okay, first question. How many days a week should you hip thrust if growing glutes is your goal? I will always recommend to hip thrust 3 days a week if growing glutes is your main goal. I personally have been hip thrusting 3 days a week for as long as I know, even throughout my rehab. All of my clients also will hip thrust 3 days a week. Okay, now when it comes to what type of methods and variations you should be doing on those 3 days, it's going to be very individual. Okay, I'll always recommend, as a general rule, one of those days to be working towards getting strong, building strength within your hip thrust, so doing dead stop reps where the bar resets each rep. and focusing on progressive overload. So you want to be keeping your sets and the reps the same and focusing on getting stronger over time and really pushing yourself, okay? You shouldn't be leaving too much in the tank on this particular day. I always recommend another day to be adding in like a tempo control or something like a constant tension rep, 1 1/4 rep, B stance, something that you're gonna get a really nice glute pump and feel a big burn in your glutes. You're not gonna feel a massive burn in your glutes when you are doing your strength, sets particularly, okay? There's a big misconception on that, which is a story for another day. But I do recommend for one of those days in the week to be focusing on a bit more of a pump burn and adding in a tempo control such as constant tension reps, 1 1/4 reps, those sorts of tempo controls and methods that are going to assist you to do that. And then I recommend on the third day to add in a method that is something that maybe you're wanting to be improving within your hip thrust overall. So maybe you're someone who's struggling with your lockout strength, okay? In that reason or that situation, adding in isometric holds where you're holding at the top for 2 to 5 seconds, for example, that's going to help you improve your lockout strength and help you work towards, in making sure that you're adhering to full hip extension and locking out, because you're having to hold at that end range and you're increasing your time under tension, in an area of weakness within the movement. Okay, so 3 days a week, I recommend if you're really keen on growing your glutes, 2 to 3. Okay, 1 day focusing on strength, 2nd day focusing more of a pump, 3rd day adding in a method that's going to help you work towards whatever it is that you're working on. Maybe you're really focusing on your strength, so you want to add in another strength day. That's also fine too, okay? Next question. I'm trying to be quick with the questions because I end up talking so much. Do you recommend a quad focused, hamstring focused and glute focused day? No, not particularly. Most of you guys should know now that I'm very much team full body. I love to train full body sessions. And when I am doing my lower body sessions, I will make sure that I'm hitting all movement patterns which contribute to loading our glutes. Okay, and I find this more beneficial when it comes to recovery. Okay, whereas if I did a full quad focused day, a full hamstring focused day, a full glute focused day, it's going to take me longer to recover in those particular areas. Whereas if I'm spreading out my overall sets through focusing on all the main movement patterns for glutes within each session, my recovery is a lot better, which means when I go into my next day, okay, I'm feeling quite recovered and I can still, make sure my training performance is good. Because even if you are having a quad focused day, you don't really want to be having sore quads when you're doing a glute focused day, okay, when you're doing more hinge movements, bridge movements, abduction movements, okay? So you can if you want. At the end of the day, if you can recover fine, that's also fine. But at the end of the day, what we need to be prioritizing is our training performance, making sure our training performance is on point each session, which is then going to obviously increase our training intensity, okay, and lead to better gains. So personally, I'm not for body part splits. I prefer full body. Do you have to be in a calorie surplus if you want to grow your glutes? No, you definitely don't. I think there's just a massive misconception on calorie surplus, calorie deficit. I think people think into it way too much. I'm team maintenance, okay? But if you're in a calorie deficit, surplus, maintenance, you can still build muscle, okay? A lot of the time, it is gonna come down to your recovery. It's gonna come down to your training structure, if you're making progress with your training and your strength, and also your training intensity and effort, okay? A lot of people worry too much about their nutrition and their calories. Okay, yes, it does play a role, and yes, it is going to be more beneficial to be in a calorie surplus, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you definitely will build your glutes if you're in a calorie surplus. Because if you are in a calorie surplus and your training intensity is crap, you're not progressively overloading, and you're just kind of, YOLOing every time you're in the gym, you could be gaining size in your glutes, but could be body fat, might not be muscle, okay? So my recommendations is to, if you really do want to be building muscle, that's your main goal, then yes, there are benefits to being a calorie surplus, but if you're pretty happy with your physique, you just want to be building your glutes a little bit more and not necessarily adding in extra body fat, adding extra body fat, then you can make awesome progress when you're training intensity and effort and you've got a really great structured progressive program whilst just sticking to maintenance calories and adhering to your daily protein requirements. I've been on maintenance calories for years now. I don't always feel my glutes when I'm training them. Does this mean I'm not engaging them? This is a common question, and I'm going to do probably a whole new video on this question as well, but I think that when it comes to glutes and like feeling and also I hope the battery doesn't die, I feel like it's getting close to it. I feel like when it comes to glutes, people think that you need to be feeling this extreme burn and engagement every set, every rep, every exercise, okay? But when you think about it, what about our other muscle groups? You know, that's not really expected for all other muscle groups. It's just really the glutes category that people are assuming that you need to be having a big burn to be engaging them, okay? It depends on what you're doing and also depends on your genetics and your mechanics and whatnot. You know, what exercise you're going to be feeling a really big sensation and burn, okay? Obviously, when you're doing your banded work, your high rep work, your tempo work, then yeah, you're probably going to be feeling a big burn in your glutes, which I think is probably one of the reasons why people assume that you have to always be having those feelings. But when you're doing, for example, heavy hip thrusts, maybe you're focusing on progressive overload and your strength, you're not going to really feel a massive burn in your glutes, okay? Think about when you're doing really heavy deadlift sets or heavy squat sets. You know, you're not going to be going, oh, I really felt my glutes and my hamstrings when I did that deadlift set, because you're focusing on lifting the heavy weight, okay? Your mind has to focus on other things, okay? Your mind's focusing on your technique, okay? Making sure you're not injuring yourself and whatnot. Same when you're doing your heavy hip thrust sets, okay? So just because you're not feeling your glutes does not necessarily mean that you are not engaging them or using them, okay? Yes, when you're doing your band, high rep tempo work, you know, you are going to probably feel a bit more of a burn, but when you're doing your heavier, you know, your hip thrusts, heavy hip thrusts, your squats, your deadlifts, even some of your other RDL movements and whatnot, you're not always going to feel a massive burn sensation, but don't think that you're not using your glutes. If you've got great technique and you're applying progressive overload over time, you will build muscle and you will build your glutes. I hope that sums up that question. But anyways, I'm going to leave this week's video there. I hope you guys enjoyed the Q&A and kickback tips. Make sure you guys subscribe and like this video and let me know what other videos I can help you guys with, and I'll speak to you in the next video.